everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Napoleon 2023. This is a new film, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours, 38 minutes. As of the recording of this video, we have a Rotten Tomato score of 66% for the critics. There's no audience score as of yet, and a Letterboxd average rating of 3.3 stars. Napoleon is a spectacle-filled action epic that details the checkered rise and fall of the iconic French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, played by Oscar winner Joaquin Phoenix, against a stunning backdrop of a large-scale filmmaking orchestrated by legendary director Ridley Scott. The film captures Bonaparte's relentless journey to power through the prism of his addictive, volatile relationship with his one true love, Josephine, showcasing the visionary military and political tactics against some of the most dynamic practical battle sequences ever put on film. This film is directed by Ridley Scott, written by David Scarpa, and as I mentioned, it stars Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon Bonaparte and Vanessa Kirby as Josephine Bonaparte. The cast is actually quite extensive, but I feel like these two characters um, really are at the heart of this film. So that's why I didn't really pull off any more cast. I feel like all the other characters just kind of gravitate around these two characters for me. So, and as many as there are portraying all these historical figures, I just felt like it would be a little bit unnecessary to really bring in more of the cast. But I do want to say there was a lot of fantastic performances, but they all really fall short in comparison just to the amount of screen time and dialogue and action and everything that was based around Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby's characters. Um, so I guess up front, I will say I'm not a history buff. I don't know much about history. I knew like the big overall details of the Napoleon story. I didn't have the full historical context or even the time, and even then, like I don't know much about the happenings over in France. But I Ridley Scott is one of my favorite directors. I love Gladiator, and I love a lot of the other things that he's attempted to do, even though he's had a few things that maybe didn't fully connect. I have a suspicion that this film will be something like that, just even based on the critical response and the letterbox ratings. Like 66%, although I don't think that's a bad score. 3.3 average on Letterbox. I don't think those are bad scores. I feel like people have a lot of really high expectations for this film. I think they're comparing it to something like Gladiator, which is probably one of the best, or if not the best, in my opinion, is the best Ridley Scott film. So there's definitely a lot of that going into it. I also feel like the marketing for this film is a little misleading. I think once again cashing in on the name and the historical aspect of this, and also the relationship between Joaquin Phoenix and Ridley Scott as they come back on another film. They kind of wanted to really cash in on, like, if you really like the movies that he's done with historical stuff like Gladiator, yeah, you're definitely gonna want to see this because you're not gonna want to miss a big battles like that. Now, this film is full of fantastic looking battles, and I'm talking about immense proportions, uh, tons of people, thousands of extras probably, and it all looks fantastic. This is Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott is a fantastic filmmaker. Whatever you think of maybe the stories that he chooses to portray, or how the films ultimately end up, as far as just filmmaking, I think everyone for the most part can agree that he's a fantastic filmmaker. Now, there's a lot that goes into making a film, but at least as far as the look of it, I think Ridley Scott has just a very good eye for the aesthetics and the feelings around a lot of those things, how they're supposed to flow, how they're supposed to feel, bring in that grittiness and that tactile touch, through the screen. So I love the look of the film. I love how look all the costuming, the settings, like everything really felt like, oh yeah, this is of that period. Now, I want to say this film doesn't hold back anything at all. Like, it begins at a 10, as far as like, we're going to give you what you want to see as far as like it's gonna be crazy stuff happening because a lot of crazy stuff happened during the French Revolution and all throughout the turmoil of the empire. Um, I think Napoleon is a larger than life type of character. I think what I was not expecting is, and I made a note, uh, like, is this supposed to be a comedy? There was a lot of the tone of this film to me was all over the place, which I thought that was fine. I thought that was cool. It was a nice reversion to my expectations because I also went in thinking this is going to be a very serious drama, but Napoleon is such a weird character. He has a lot of different um just a lot of different vices and a lot of insecurities, and I feel like Joaquin Phoenix really leaned into all that, to where at some of these points I had a laugh at the theater as things were happening, like whether it's like a little temper tantrum or an interaction, because Napoleon, he is portrayed as a character who's very socially inept at some points, specifically when meeting Josephine, who, oh my goodness, Vanessa Kirby just obliterated this role. She was fantastic. She looked great. I think she had so many different changes and different looks throughout the film. It's almost as if you were kind of telling the passing of time by following Josephine's characters, because for the most part, Napoleon looked very similar, right? Like his uniform would change, his medals would change, like his hat would change, but you can't really tell until maybe closer to the end, like where his hair's thinning out and he does look a little bit older. But they did such a good job with Vanessa Kirby of just showing her evolution. Um, you know, uh, I don't know exactly the historical context, but when you first meet the character, you can tell that she had been in prison and her hair had been cut short. So like, you can definitely just they use that as a passage of time of like, here's how their relationship is growing, and you can see that her hair is coming out. Um, and just all the conversations, they use a very interesting device of this letter writing campaign between them to kind of just show us the conversation and also give us a little bit of context of the world, as well as just a little bit of world building. And I don't know, I thought that was very good because it's narrated in each of their voices, and I think both of the actors are fantastic when it comes to just making you feel, um, like announcing with that emotion, like just portraying their feelings that are coming through in their voice, even if you can't really see them, but you do see them. You see them a lot. They're on screen a lot. So I don't know. Joaquin Phoenix just manages to be such a like he manages to bubble up his emotions up to the surface level, where like he's not hiding anything in this character, right? Napoleon doesn't know how to hide, and because he has no reason to hide his feelings or how he's like his emotions at the moment. Like when he's angry, he's gonna throw a tantrum. I think they did a really interesting thing of like, I don't know how tall he's supposed to be in real life, but the one of the things that he's known for, Napoleon as a character or as a person, is that he's supposed to be more of a short stature. They definitely cast him talking and interacting with a lot of characters that he looks shorter than them, including Vanessa Kirby, who I looked up her height. I believe she's like 5'7", and Joaquin Phoenix is 5'8". So like, it's not she's not supposed to look taller than him, but in the film they definitely make it seem so. So that was very interesting trickery on the part of the filmmakers. um the musical score, it just inundates you like from the moment you get in there. Like the first sequence really draws you in with just these epic cinematic songs, and then just kind of lulls you through. Anytime there's a big battle, it all looks and sounds great. There are probably three or four like really big battle sequences that I was so amazed by how different they were, and just the scope and probably everything that took place. There are some situations where things get a little bit gory, I will say, If you don't like seeing animals get hurt, I mean, obviously, this is all kind of done with effects, but you do see a few horses take a brunt of a lot of damage because that's kind of how war. That was a big part of war, right back then with the cavalry and everything. Um, but yeah, and I just really like also like all the different places that we got to visit, like the specific points of his life that they chose to highlight for this was so interesting. It was very interesting. Just you know, I haven't looked into how historically accurate this is. I know that there were some criticisms from that, from the like from just like looking on social media and stuff going prior to the film, but I try to stay away from it just to avoid, I don't want to say spoilers, but I don't think you can spoil this film as like, oh, you don't know what happens to Napoleon at the end, but I think the emotional beats can be spoiled by looking too much into this film before going into it. So I don't want to touch on any of that stuff, but man, it is quite a journey. It is a little bit of a longer movie, so if you're like me, that any time that a movie is over 2 hours, I'm gonna be very critical of it because you're making me spend a lot of extra time. I guess I'm gonna be more critical of it because you're making me spend a little bit more extra time. But man, with this film, I could have even seen this go into, and maybe they'll do this when it releases on Apple, where they'll re-release it as maybe some kind of like multi-chapter part event because you could do that. This should be coming to Apple at some point. Like I'm sure once the theatrical run is over. But do yourself a favor, watch this in the largest screen possible. You won't want to miss. Like I said, those battles you've seen in the trailer, the battle on the ice, like those sequences are so much more expanded. It is wild to me how they can kind of capture the essence of that in a 30-second clip that they show you during the trailer. But they did such a good job, and it looks beautiful. So yeah, this film, it's not my favorite Ridley Scott movie, but I think it's definitely better than the last two that I saw, which I believe were The Last Duel and House of Gucci. But a lot of it has to do with just Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby just knocking it out of the park. Fantastic stuff. This is going into the end of the year. Uh, Maybe a contender to be in my top 10 of the year. I have to go back and look, but man, I there's still a few things that I want to watch after this as well. So, yeah, if you're going into the Thanksgiving break or the holidays and you want to catch a movie at the theater and you want to go in there and be amazed by something of how you can make something so beautiful in a screen, I think Napoleon is the right film for that. But like I said, it is very tonally weird. Also, the situations that sometimes happen can get a little weird because that's, I mean, like I said, Napoleon was a character. So, yeah, it was such a great experience. I really really enjoyed that. So, if you have seen this film, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.